there's a long history of economic astrologers. There's the old saying, millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do, right?
Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
Hey, what is your sign? We're going to find out what my sign is, but I'm also going to talk about all things astrology and horoscopy. And am I allowed to say new agey, or is that like an insult? Oh, hold on. This is Noah Campbell. You might also know him as Facing North Astrology. You might have seen him on a number of some of the better episodes of SyncTank. And I love just the way that you're able to bring an extra level of actual horoscope knowledge to some of these syncs that we kind of go on. And I've fully vetted you, so you know your stuff 100%. And man, I've got a huge variety of questions for you. Some are going to be on a spectrum of skeptical, and some are going to be on the spectrum of completely open-minded. So for the record, I'm as open-minded as I possibly can be for the entirety of this. Make no question about that. So you're totally at ease. You're in a safe zone. I hope I'm in a safe zone, because I realize to admit anything that you might suggest, I'm going to have to also be honest and maybe personable about a lot of this. So welcome to, what an introduction. You can also find you at Facing North Astrology on Patreon, at Facing North on YouTube. And you've got a Redbubble account where you've got some pretty dope merch on Foul Music. So this is and you're rocking it right now. So Noah Campbell, welcome to Paranoid American. How's it going, man?
Yeah, not bad. That's a lot to respond to. But
here we go.
I mean, I'm in depth. Like I'm halfway through Philip K. Dick's exegesis. So the idea of being constantly skeptical of everything while completely open-minded is exactly where my mind is at right now. So it's perfect.
Okay. And let me just start out this particular interview with, I think, the most important question that everyone always has on their mind. Noah Campbell, are you a cop?
Next question.
Okay. I gotta have like a timer of like how long it takes people to answer that question. That would be a nice little addition to that. I assume this is true, but you consider yourself an astrologist?
No, I consider myself an astrologer. You can call me New Age all you want, but you cannot use the word astrologist.
Oh, okay. Well, and please inform me what the difference between IST and ER are, unless this is sarcasm.
It just sounds annoying. It's just
okay. And all right, well, let me be annoying right back. How does that differ from, say, fortune teller to a common Joe Sixpack?
How does that differ? Okay, so you're now, you've got astrologist, common Joe, and fortune teller, and you want me to like delineate between the three?
No. I guess that once someone submits to a concept of the full extreme on the end of the spectrum of astrology, I guess this is me more about my bias. Let me get my bias out on the table before we even talk about you, right? So I think that might actually be important. I gotta clear out some skeletons. So, of like fully submitting to this idea of astrology and that the date you were born on, even down to the time, kind of reflect and maybe guide, and maybe the wrong word to use, but like it's deterministic. Like all of a sudden, now you're going to act this way, you're going to make these decisions, or at least every time you roll the dice on all the options that you've got in front of you, that you're going to like, the dice are always going to be loaded in a certain way based on your astrological sign or some other kind of star sign or position. If I keep it that general, is that even accurate, or is there something you can correct in that thinking?
That's a good place to start. So first off, we've got a doubting Thomas on our hands.
Okay. I knew it. Yeah, of course. We'll get there.
Yeah. Actually, on your name, the word Thomas means twin, right?
It does.
And
yeah.
Your sun sign is Gemini.
And that's, to be honest, that's not even intentional. This is because I was named after an uncle that I never met because he died very early in age. So it was kind of named in honor of him. So it wasn't even necessarily like a play on the words. So the reason that I even mentioned that is because these are two little things that just kind of fell into place, right? And let me explain my open-mindedness. This is at least how I think of it, is that everyone's got a limit on how many coincidences or how many puzzle pieces that just perfectly fit into place. And there has to be a threshold on it can't be infinity. Like if you recognize 9 million different puzzle pieces that fit in place, that's almost like, oh, this entire reality was like played out for me. If you only notice like 2 or 3, like, okay, you can be a skeptic your entire life. But if like, you get up to like the 20s or 30s or hundreds over a lifetime, over time, it feels like, okay, I'm actually noticing like a fabric or a pattern or something that could be reflected by what was always ignored by me as astrology or something else ancillary to that. Does that sound like a fair way to be open-minded about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's my experience in life for sure. So I'll say right off the bat that I'm not fatalistic. I think that that's a really disempowering mindset to have in engaging with this reality, which is probably a fake Maya to begin with, right? But we're here anyways. No matter how fake it is, the Black Iron Prison or whatever you want to call it, we're here. And so to believe we're here for a purpose is important, one. And to believe that we can affect that purpose, two, is super important for having a meaningful and worthwhile life. So I don't believe that because you were born on a certain moment at a certain time, everything is going to play. It's already, the whole path is written for you. I don't believe that. I believe you can affect that path. But it's like, I'll explain it to you. It's like an RPG game, right? Like your natal chart is like, these are the stats you were born with. What are you going to do with them? How are you going to upgrade it? How are you going to lean into it? And that's my barrier between what's fatalistic and what's free will. So it's not like, oh, I was born with this chart, so that's all I can do. No, it's like you can lean into the skills that your chart has, the benefits, what your chart implies you're going to be really good at, and you're going to have a better life probably. You can also find purpose in your chart. You can find, what am I supposed to be doing? What's going to make me feel fulfilled? You can find that in your chart, and then you can work with it. And then you can look at what happens to your chart as the planets keep moving around it, and figure out what time periods are going to be difficult and what time periods are going to be easy. And if the time period is going to be difficult, you can find meaning in that too. You can find, why am I not aligning with what the sky is saying right now? What is it that I'm doing that is not being blessed by the planets right now?
Okay, that's a fair point. And I also want to define, I think, what my spectrum is between belief and disbelief in the entire concept of, and also forgive me if I say astrology as a placeholder for what in my mind is actually an inclusion of a much wider gamut than maybe we're even talking about here. But like, let's just keep it to astrology for now, but realize that some of this bias is coming from, I'm thinking of like tarot and maybe even like palmistry and things that would fit in the same gift shop as the horoscope items. So I guess like my full spectrum is that on the extreme skeptical end, it's basically everything is fake. And then on the most open-ended version of this, like the most nuanced that I think still fits within skeptical like forgiveness, is that astrology almost becomes like a mnemonic device to keep humanity as a whole and society on some kind of a standard that reflects an actual natural order that is maybe observed and imposed through nature. And it's almost like a sympathetic magic feedback loop where maybe it's not that astrology is telling you what to do because this is how it's going to play out. It's more like, hey, the world is just pure chaos, and if you were born in this timeline, here's an archetype that you can easily mold yourself to make some sense out of this chaos. So like that's my skeptic, I guess, spectrum. And then I'm free to even break out of that mold, but I feel like those are my baby steps.
Yeah, fair. And I think that's a good mindset to have. We're gonna nudge
you don't have to treat me with kid gloves, by the way. If I say something absolutely stupid or ignorant, like please like call me out, because I want to truly see if I can expand just my concept of this entire field by the end of this interview. I know it's a lot. I'm putting a lot on you.
Yeah, but I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying. And so when I started studying astrology, I didn't believe in it, right? Like I came from a very I was always pretty agnostic, pretty agnostic, which is
raised agnostic or raised apathetic to religion or what? Oh, no. Okay.
No, I came from Christians, or sorry, hippies, right? Oh, so back up. I live in this rural
hippie
town.
Christians. Yeah, let's go there, man.
Yeah, you'll like this. So, we're talking about far north, rural, kind of certain element of hick quality. I wouldn't.
Have you ever heard of the Yellow Deli?
No.
Okay, I won't take us on that tangent right now. Go continue.
All right. So, but my parents grew up in the 60s, and so they became hippies, and they went and they traveled the world, and they made all these weird friends and stuff. And then around right before I was born, note my name, Noah, they became Reformed born again Christians. Okay. So there's this lineage, but unlike a lot of Christians, they didn't cut out their friends. They didn't say, oh, you don't believe in this, forget about you. So I grew up with a very close family friend, Robin Armstrong, who is like a notable international astrologer. And he used to come and visit us for Christmas. Like he'd spend Christmas with the Christians up in Kapuskasing, right? And so but he was kind of like, he had his hands bound a little bit by my parents. He wasn't like, I remember one Christmas he gave these computer printouts of our natal charts, and those kind of like went away pretty quick. But he was
there a discussion behind closed doors somewhere that was, hey guy?
No, I don't think so, because at the same point in time, he came up one year when I was having some brutal transits, like when I was a kid, and I was ready to go. Like I was like, I don't want to be in this life at all. And he kind of saw that, and he bought me drumsticks. Like he saw it in my chart, and then he brought out my parents like pots and pans and was like, you can drum, and he showed me that you can just do a drum circle with anything. And that totally saved my life. Right. So, they also, like, my mom always knew that he knew what he was talking about. She never denied it was real. Right. And she saw the value in what he did. But also it's that slippery occult slope. Right. Like once you step into one element, you can fall down the rail. And the Bible is just astro coded top to bottom. Like the idea that it's anti-astrology is insane. That like Genesis 1:17, I think that's the right verse, is literally God put the stars in the sky for signs and seasons. Signs, like it's coded from.
I think we are equally blasphemous in this regard for sure. I do. You could have an easy sell on me talking about the Bible being astrotheology, that almost all of the different parables and the book of Revelations all the way to like every single version of almost anything outside of Proverbs and maybe even some of Proverbs, but that even like the book of Numbers, that all of this is kind of astrology, old world astrology in certain ways.
Oh, 100%.
We'll get into that. Let's start out a little bit light, man. I want to get directly into the blasphemy. Like we're good Christians here on
This isn't blasphemy. This is bringing it back to what it really is. The
Well,
reality.
that's double blasphemy, sir. I'll have you know. That's it's flippant blasphemy, which is a little bit more controversial. So
it's just a coincidence. Everything in the Bible is 12 and 7. 12 signs, 7 planets. 12 signs, 7 planets. Like all the time. It wasn't intentional. I'm sure it's just an accident.
Okay, so let me start at the skeptical angle, and
right.
and I'm not going to be like, oh, I've went and here's all my personal opinions. The main one that I think I identify with is this thing called like the Barnum-Forer effect, and I'm going to break this down just a little bit. The Barnum part I think is tacked on. This one came from like the 1960s. Someone wrote an article and they were comparing horoscopes and astrology in general to like a P.T. Barnum way of just like snake oil kind of cold calling people's intentions and then like monetizing it. That part is like got tacked on, but then this Forer effect is based on a late 1940s experiment where the psychologist gave a survey out to a bunch of his college students, and they kind of had it was all astrology. It was like, tell us what your sign is. We're going to write you personal horoscope. And after he gives it to all the students, he asks them all to rate it on a scale from 1 to 5 on how accurate it was. And the class average came out to a 4.3, indicating that a vast majority of this tiny little anecdotal sample set, but the only one that gets something named after it. And the point of this was, then he told everyone that they all got the identical horoscope reading that everyone got. And some of the example statements on it were kind of generic, like two of the most obvious ones were, you have a great need for other people to like and admire you. And then the other one was, you have a tendency to be critical of yourself. And there was like 40 of these questions, but as you can see, every one of these statements is vague enough that it could be identified by almost everybody. And if you kind of just chain hundreds of these kind of statements together, then that's the implication of that. Like horoscope reading in general is just a numbers game of like, if I just throw a bunch of generic stuff at you, you'll be like, yeah, of course. Like, for example, doubting Thomas, but pretty much everyone is doubting, right? Everyone doubts something at some point. And I do totally agree with that. I probably would say that's one of the more accurate things. And if you were like, oh, of course, doubting, my name does match me in that regard. But I also feel that almost anyone could identify with that.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, a study like that doesn't disprove astrology. It just proves confirmation bias. It's just, which is
absolutely
true.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. And there are better studies where they were giving charts to a range of astrologers to pick and match with like an MBTI printout of the same person. That's a better study, but still problematic in certain ways, because then you have to assume that the MBTI is correct, right? And most of those studies are all done based on sun sign alone, based on just where the sun is in a division of 12, which is a valid, and I mean, power. That's where everyone starts, right? In modern society, it didn't used to be that way. You used to look at the moon for a night chart would be more important than the sun.
This is all news to me. We're gonna have to actually slow down just a second here. So there's two different ways of approaching astrology, and
there's infinite ways to approach astrology.
Okay, fair point, but there's literal like a sun way and a moon way, and I'm sure even within those two, out of an unlimited, there's different ways to interpret that, or am I misreading that?
Okay, so when it comes to astrology, you're looking at a moment in time, and you're looking at a human being's relationship to the sky at that moment. So it's not just where the sun is, although that's become in modern day the most prominent thing. And it's a ritual that humans still, even the most, other than the Jehovah's Witnesses, they're one of the only ones who don't get into this ritual. They're the only ones who aren't going full occult. We all celebrate our birthdays, right? And we light candles, we put fire, it's all magic, right? You write a beautiful message on a cake and we eat it. These are all rituals, right? So, but what we're celebrating there is the sun returning to its natal spot. It's a transit. And the way birthdays should be used, because the sun is your creative heart, it represents what your actual creative spirit is. It should be used to fulfill your desires. So if really all you care about in life is partying, then yeah, having a party's do it. But if you're an artist, and it could be your birthday, your solar return can be a day before or a day after too, depending on, because of the 365.25 rotation cycle of the earth as it orbits around the sun. So you find the exact moment of your solar return and you use that to create something. It's one of the most potent creative moments in the year, every year. So it's just, sorry, I'm getting outside of your question.
No, you're not. No, that's actually perfect. So that also brings up a couple different questions. The one that I wanted to get to them first, because I find this more fascinating. It's a little tangential, but to describe how important it is at like the exact time, not just what day you were born to figure out a general astrology, but the actual time you were born. Does this not imply, and it does to me, I guess I'll rephrase it, but like, does this not imply in a Socratic way that the date and the exact time of your death should be equally important too? Yet everyone, at least on paper, and it's very taboo to indicate otherwise, leaves this up to nature, leaves it up to chance as when you're going to exit. But like almost in a heaven, maybe not a heaven's gateway, but like maybe you can sit down and find out your chart and like, I mean, technically speaking, astrologically speaking, this would be the best exit point for me, you know, based on time and date. Is that something that people do, or is there like is there a reason to not do that? Aside, we're not advocating anything. I'm just philosophical.
Okay. So first off, one of the more which is really interesting. This is really interesting. One of the more reliable predictive elements for death is the sky coming back to a place that approximates the birth chart. So the more what we would call a recurrence transit, which is a planet coming to the same, and also there's the retrograde cycles of the 5 planets, things coming back to a similar point in a chart, often portends death. Now, what's fascinating, so you'll know with celebrities or people, they often die close to their birthday, very frequently. Now that you've heard this, watch for it. Watch for it. It happens all the time. David Lynch recently, Hulk Hogan. This happens a lot. Okay.
Although statistically, it is an anomaly to die on your actual birthday.
Like, what do you mean by that?
Like
it's really rare.
It's rarer than 50-50 essentially. And if you were to equally portion out all the times you could die, and most of this, I've been down this rabbit hole. So, and this is also from my Rockefeller education. But there's also a much higher chance that someone is born on the same day.
Yep.
Then it's not like everyone has an equal 1 out of 365 just because of nature and maybe astrology and the turning of the seasons. But humans tend to procreate around the same times, and it's not just like an equal chance every day of the year, or at least when they conceive. So when you go into a room, and I can't remember the name of this phenomenon, but it's the phenomenon of if you get into a room of like 30 people, I'm making this number up, and once 30 people are in one room, now all of a sudden the chance of 2 people having the same birthday is like so much high. It's like a statistical non-anomaly at that point. Right. So speaking of that, it's just like dying, I think, would have the equal chances relevance, maybe. I don't know.
Well, okay, so first off, there are natal signatures in families. Like families trend towards, and not just birthday, although my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandfather were born on the same day. And I also have an uncle who was born on that same day. So 3 people in my direct family line, all born on one day. And it constellates around spring months, which my family is just lousy with spring energy, right? So that's a thing. And then
because they're all getting frisky around Halloween, or what?
It's just the energy, because so when you look at the year, it's about light cycles too. There are all these interlocking systems. It's not just one thing. But the light cycle is the sun is gaining energy as it moves towards spring. From the winter solstice to the summer solstice, you're getting more light every single day, and that's yang energy. Okay, that's an increase of independence and creative freedom, and just personal agency. And then you hit the summer solstice, and suddenly the light starts to wane. Okay, and that's a movement towards the yin energy. It's a movement towards other people, towards community, towards connecting to other people, towards responsibility. Okay, these are two profound factors in every element of astrology, and it works for the zodiac, which is the year, right? Which is the actual time of year, but it works in the day too, based on the sun rising, the sun reaching its culmination at the midheaven, and the sun setting. That there's a yin yang balance to that as well. And so some families tend to be more yin, some families tend to be more yang, and you can really, it's noticeable.
And to go back to like the death date thing, are there any known practices or cultures or groups that continuously actually plan out the moment of death for astrological advantage? And if not, why not?
Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? I'm sure that there are secret societies who have death rituals. You know,
of course. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, we're in one. We can't tell anyone about that. That's basically what SyncTank is. But
so yeah, okay. So there's a few factors to sort of consider. One, astrology is a study of beginnings. It's the natal point that is the most important. Just like, although everyone notices the full moon, it's actually the new moon that's the most important, because that's where the sun and moon meet and it begins a new cycle. Okay, and that's the moment that's seeded every month that tells the story of what this month is going to be. So everyone thinks about these culmination points, but it's really the beginning. It's the beginning, and it happens in the dark. Beginnings happen in the dark. Most astrologers start the zodiac at the spring equinox, but there is a really powerful point to start it at the winter solstice, the moment of deepest darkness, because the sun is reborn at that point. That's where we celebrate. Oh, geez, sorry, it's too blasphemous for you. I know. We'll bypass what I was about to say.
Oh, no, you're the one going to hell, not me. I don't care. You can blaspheme all you want, dude. My personal relation, I eat the body and drink the blood of Jesus Christ every single week, so I'm fine, dude.
Well, all right, okay, all right, that's good. So transubstantiation or not?
No, it's there's no not there. It's transubstantiation.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're full blast. Okay, very good, very good. Is it real wine or is it grape juice?
It actually does have to be real wine, and just to let you know, pro tip I know from experience, altar boy and military chaplain. Once that blood is blessed, baby, like you cannot pour it down the drain. You have to consume it because it is divine, and you're not allowed to pour something so divine into the sewer. Yeah. So
there was man, I can't even remember who told. I wish I could give you the proper quote, but there was someone who told a story about how he was friends with this a famous person, but I can't remember who it was. Friends with a priest, and he was attending a mass. And he didn't feel it. Like there was this mass where it didn't come off, and he's like, the communion wasn't right. Like, I don't know, I didn't feel it. Normally, I feel the Holy Spirit in the room. And the priest was like, "Yeah, we used grape juice. We didn't use wine."
Yeah, I mean, it adds a little kick, man. I don't know. Okay, here. This is less tangential. So if there is such an importance on the natal position of the sun and everything else in the sky, but let's just keep it simple and just say the position of the sun when you're born. What do you count as born? Let's say you crown, but you're like a complicated ass baby. You got like a big blocky bony head or something, whatever. There's something going on with you, and mom's in labor for like 8 hours. Like at what point? Is it like when you're 51% out of the cavity, like that, like that? Now it's like, okay, this is where it counts. Are you like more receptive to creative energy on your birthday because your conception lasted so much longer? Like how do you judge that?
Okay, so there's an answer to that, and the answer is the first breath. That's actually the moment. So
interesting. Okay, well, hold on. I want to hear you talking about the first breath. Let me just inject here so I don't forget. What about if the first breath is delayed somehow? Like, what if it needs to be resuscitated, or like, does that delay? Like it just and also even I guess more importantly is the doctor and the nurse, they don't necessarily record it on the first breath.
Yeah.
So if you're doing an astrological reading, you're kind of just guessing based on what got written on the paper and assuming that they wrote it down right and it all got transcribed right. And like there's so much up to chance that like how much could that really change somebody's entire perception path?
Okay, so I don't know which question to answer first, but there's an answer for all of it.
Well, I'll get back to the first breath and explain the concept of that. But it's more about like we're relying so much on government agencies to record something, and what they record isn't even necessarily the first breath. So like, how do you account for that discrepancy? Like,
we always assume that the birth time is rough. I mean, I do, unless they tell me that their parents were into astrology and were like getting that moment. And by the way, also, it's not universal that you use the first breath. There are, I'm sure, schools of astrology that don't necessarily haven't thought that out, right?
Are there any schools that just rely on the Rockefeller medical system? They're like, whatever the clerk wrote down, that's what we go by.
First injection always. That's so yeah, it's rough. But okay, so here's the thing. Some people don't know their birth time. I can still read their chart. There's a whole layer of information that isn't there. And the moon moves about 12 degrees every day, give or take, based on where it is in its elliptical orbit. So you start moving into this fuzzy logic. You start thinking, okay, well, you're looking at probabilities. And you can also rectify birth charts too. There are methods for figuring out what the actual time was based on transits that happen to the chart, as well as how they're living their lives. And I've got a story there. I don't know, it's maybe too much of a tangent to tell, but you can go
tangent away if you want.
Okay, so I'll do it quickly. Basically, when I was learning astrology, I don't have a birth time for my grandmother. She's 101, by the way. She's still alive. At any rate, so she was adopted, and her adoptive mother was an astrologer. I didn't know her. She was long gone by the time I got around. But she was also an astrologer and a mystic in various ways, and also a Sunday school teacher. So she's this like fascinating figure in my mind that there's a whole story there, a fascinating story. At
Not
any rate,
a Catholic, I hope.
No, definitely not Protestant. So, but also
read Protestant. I'm just kidding.
So, yeah, you guys get all your occultism out by worshiping saints and whatever else, right?
Yeah, I gotta say it's pretty great. It's pretty great.
Yeah. So yeah, we're missing some of that occult tech, but at any rate,
we got gold filigrees and like all kinds of stained glass window. Like we started the stained glass window thing. Everyone else copied it. I'm just gonna say that.
You guys got incense, so you're doing a full ritual. Like you're doing a full magical ritual, which the Protestants didn't understand. You need the fire, you need the incense, you need the light.
Well, here I'm gonna take us into a different tangent, and I'll bring that back up again. But you continue on your tangent, okay?
Sorry. So at any rate, I'm learning astrology, and some of the things that my teacher is telling me are things that I'm seeing in my grandma's chart, despite the fact that I don't have a birth time. Now, the birth time really tells the houses. So you have the zodiac, everyone knows the zodiac, but there's also the houses around that, which is the position of the sky from your local space, right? What's above the horizon, what's setting, what's below the horizon. And this is really the worldly concerns. This is, and honestly, because it's often delineated by a cross, okay, of what's the horizon and what's the midheaven, right? What's culminating at the top of the ecliptic, and what, because everything, the sun, once it gets to true noon in your region, is setting, and that's a different energy, and you can feel it shift. You can feel it become more relational, more, it's less about getting everything done. It becomes more about relating to other people.
Is it accurate to consider houses as seasons, or is that an oversimplification?
Houses are quadrants of the sky. They're essentially 2-hour quadrants of the sky. There are 12 houses, and you can correlate them to the signs in various ways. But basically, every single chart has a different setup of where the houses are aligned with the actual zodiac. Okay, because the houses are actually, as the Earth's spinning, you're going to get the rising sign is going to go through all 12 signs, right? The entire sky rises every day, right, as the Earth turns. So it's actually the rotation of the Earth is the houses.
Okay.
Okay, so you can kind of visualize that a little bit. At any
So,
rate, that
so you don't know which house she's essentially born in unless you know the exact date, or sorry, the exact time in which
yes.
she was born, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's a whole other layer of really specific information about. You can see what someone's partner is going to be like. You can see what their home life was like. You can see what their job might be like.
Hmm.
It's all this really detailed information. Whereas the planets in the signs is more your felt experience. Um, it's more subjective, and the houses are more objective. Okay. So, but
Okay.
you can still read someone's chart without the houses. You can do it. Some people don't like to do it. They'll just elect a time and figure it out and just use a specific time. At any rate, so I didn't have a time for my grandma, but she gets on these loops, right, where she tells the same thing all over again. So if I ever mention astrology, she talks about, oh, my mom was an astrologer. She used to say, you're going to come into money one day. Well, I'm still waiting for that money. Oh, maybe it's my pension. I don't know. Because she's been collecting a pension like longer than most people worked, right? It's 101. So she's got this loop. And so as I was learning astrology, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a message. You're going to come into money. What does that mean? And so I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, that's Jupiter in the eighth house, because eighth house is other people's money, right? It's the second. It's too complicated for what we're talking about. At any rate, I found like a really traditional astrology thing. What if it was the eighth house, and I plugged the time in to make Jupiter in her eighth house, and her whole chart just like came alive? It was like angels singing. It was like, that's my grandma. She's an Aries rising. Of course she's an Aries rising. And it just like, her whole chart made perfect sense. And so it's like, wow. So my great grandmother that I never got to meet sent a message through my grandmother from beyond the grave, because she knew me as an astrologer needed to know that, and that's, so in terms of like birth time rectification, that's my favorite story. But you get all these synchronicities going because the universe wants real birth charts. They want you to know, that it's out there, and there are methods for really figuring out what that birth time actually is.
Okay, well, I invited you into my astrological house, and I feel a little vulnerable here. And also, I mean, cards on the table. Part of the reason that astrology has always occupied like a weird space in my brain is where it's neither fully denied nor fully accepted. But part of it is just because it feels like there's an aspect of vanity or like self-servingness to it, where it's like, let's talk about me for 2 hours. And it's usually like, I guess the comical version of this, or like the satirical version, is like, people go to astrologers if they can't afford a therapist, if you're fully sold on the Rockefeller system, right? So that part of it, it's a little bit awkward for me to even hear about this, or consider anyone would care about like a specific. But I'm here for it, because I gave you I found out from my mom my exact birth time according to the Rockefeller medical system that recorded it. So we don't know how accurate that is. But some of the stuff that you were telling me, and as soon as you started listing it out, it was like, all right, this does feel like it goes a little bit beyond the Forer Barnum effect. Of just like, it started, like the little puzzle pieces started stacking up. So I don't know if you remember any of the stuff that you were mentioning before, when you like actually did like a whole plot and a whole, like, what is all this even called? Like, what's the technical terms for all the things that you were doing?
Oh, geez. Yeah, no, I don't remember.
Like someone comes to you and they're like, here's when I was born. Here's the exact time. Like, what are the paces that you go through to even dig all that up?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can just do it. I mean, I can just look at a chart and start reading it, right? Like I can just start going. I prefer to have a conversation with someone to know where they're at in life, what they're actually living, what their goals are, because then I can pinpoint in without fuzziness. Because the more but then some people say, well, that's cold reading. You're just getting information and then working with it. It's like, yeah, I want to do a good job. I don't want to make assumptions that are wrong. But so a lot of what's in the birth chart is potential, right? It's like, so everyone has a seventh house, and the seventh house is the descendant. It's the western horizon when you're born. So the eastern horizon represents you. That's you in your birth chart, and the planet that rules the sign that it's in is you. And you can get all this information about what that means. Now, the western horizon is other people in your chart, but specifically it's your spouse. If you're going to have a partner in life, it's going to be determined by the situation of the planet ruling the descendant, which is the Western horizon. But what if someone doesn't have a partner? You know, where do you go with that information? Well, it's still going to tell about their enemies. It's going to still tell stories about people they know in their lives. But I mean, without, and I mean, there are indications you can say, oh, this person's going to have a hard time with relationships. You know, so you can see something like that and say, okay, well, probably if they might not have a partner, but if they do, it might be really difficult. It's going to be really difficult. You know, you can see stuff like that. But why not just ask? You know, why not just get the information from the person first, and then you can start to dig into the meaning behind things. What's important about astrology is less because I don't really care about proving it to anybody. You know, like I don't really feel the need to. If you don't want to believe, that's fine. That's your life, and it's valid. Like it's like, yeah, I get it. This is insane. Like this is really crazy. It's like, yeah, what's happening in the sky is my life. Yeah, whatever. Like it's really silly, but it's real. Like we live in a very silly reality. That's the truth of it. And so basically, in terms of reading a chart, I want to get a mini essay from someone first because they pay me to give them a consultation. And some of that is like seeing a therapist. Some of that is like dealing with their issues. Sometimes people do just come in and are just like, I just want to check up. I just want to see what you see and what you have to say. And we'll go, we'll raw dog it like that. But I prefer to light the candles and get the incense going and be like, what do you really want? You know?
Okay, ease into it a little bit. What you were talking about, like cold reading.
Yeah.
And that one has a very negative connotation to it, right? Cold reading would be like the 9-800 call Miss Cleo, or sitting. It's almost akin to someone selling you a timeshare a little bit. Like they use kind of the same techniques for different points. But there's also, I feel like, a more neutral ground that can include the tactics of cold reading without the baggage, which would be like neurolinguistic programming or NLP. And this is sort of like modeling, okay, if you were to sit down and be like, how the hell does cold reading even work? How could somebody elicit a favor, like build rapport in a short period of time based on just not even knowing them? And furthermore, how do you model like charisma? Because, and here's like another spectrum, right? Where if you're born with charisma, if you're Jim Jones, right? Like cult leader Jim Jones that has stories about he was 5 years old and he was giving sermons to groups of kids and he had charisma the day that he popped out of the womb, right? He probably has a crazy star chart. But like that's natural born charisma used for maybe some dubious ends. And then there's maybe people that have nothing but pure altruistic intentions their entire life that have zero charisma, or even worse, negative charisma, right? And for that person to go from negative charisma into like Jim Jones territory, not the bad part, but like the good charisma part, right? Like that requires almost a surgical practice. And I guess, long story short, that some people see NLP as like unethical, or they would see cold read like almost akin to cold reading, and cold reading is unethical. But really, all these different practices is sort of learning charisma methodically as opposed to just organically being born with it. And it's weird. It's almost like, well, if you're born with it, then you're allowed to use it. But if you're not born with it, then don't you dare try and cold read. Don't you dare use NLP or try to mirror my actions. Even though that's what like a regular charismatic person might do without like knowing that they're doing it.
Yeah, well, NLP and cold reading are two different things. I mean, those.
No, absolutely. NLP is like a collection of different techniques and tools that got commoditized into like a brand name that gets sold, and now there's like a MLM kind of behind it. And cold reading, and is my understanding, is just like someone kind of trying to get a feel for you, giving you vague statements. Oh, there's a Michael in your life, and letting you sort of guide them, and then just using confirmation bias to just drill down into a deep hole to a point where they're like, this person must know my whole life, and you've just kind of like fished it out of them. It's like like a social kind of manipulation thing. So like,
so first, using NLP as an astrologer to me would be really that's wrong. Like that.
Really? Okay. I want to hear more about that.
Well, you're trying to program someone. You're trying to mimic their actions in order to like that's not astrology. That like you're trying to counsel someone and figure out what their problems are and find
I
solutions.
don't. Okay, I feel like this is a good point of conversation because I feel like if you're a good astrologer and you truly do know what someone's read would be, or like some genuinely good advice that would help them in a moment because you've got like some extra level of insight that they don't have because they've got this one perspective they're looking at it from. Let's say you've got that really good read on them, but if you can't sell it well, then you might as well not have a good read on them at all. So it feels like whether you like it or not, there has to be some form of salesmanship to the interaction, just so that when you deliver this information, it's with a certain amount of confidence. If you were to like raise the tone of your voice every time you make a statement, so every single thing that you're telling someone sounds like a question, well, now it's like, I don't know if this guy knows what he's talking about. So at some generic level, there is a level of salesmanship. And maybe NLP, and I get, like I said, a lot of people consider it unethical, but like NLP is just like a way to like help that salesmanship. Let me help you, like me help you, so that I can like mirror your actions, build rapport, so that you'll take this advice as serious as you should be taking it. And that's it. That'll be my end of defense of NLP for this interview.
Well, I'm not dissing NLP. I think it has uses.
Well, within the role of astrology or any other walk of life, like any profession.
You know what? I want to wind back what I said a little bit because, okay, yeah. So if you have natural charisma
about Catholicism, or about NLP, okay, never mind.
No, NLP. So if you have natural charisma, you don't even have to worry about it, right? You can just say what you're going to say, and people will take you seriously. So I guess you could be on the spectrum or something, and have really good astrological advice, but people think they don't connect with you, and so you're using it as like some cognitive behavioral therapy almost to connect with people and get your point across. I got no problem with that. That's not what I mean. I mean, if you were specifically trying to brainwash someone into taking your advice, I mean, that's not what I do. I have no interest in taking anyone's agency away. In fact, I'm completely free will all the way. It's like, like if someone will ask me, well, should I leave my partner? It's like, well, that's not my decision. I'll tell you that much. I'll say, if you take this path, this is what your chart and the transits coming up indicate. If you stay with them, this is what it indicates. So I'll give them the positives and negatives, but it's like, dude, that's your life. That's not my karma. I'm not telling you to leave this person or quit your job. That's not it. I'll say, it's kind of.
Should I buy Bitcoin right now? Should I do it now? No, I'm serious. This isn't even a question. Should I buy it right now?
I would have to study Bitcoin astrology, and there are astrologers out there doing it. I haven't done it. I've thought about it. I've thought about actually, because you can do it, right? You can look at
really what crypto astrology.
Oh yeah, it's big. It's out there.
How big? What are we talking? Spit some numbers at me. Should we be doing this right now? Should we just stop recording conversations and just do crypto astrology?
I don't trade in crypto, so I would have to become more familiar with the system, and I would have to study the graphs of the ebbs and flows, and then study. I wouldn't do that on the fly, that's for sure. But there's a long history of economic astrologers. There's the old saying, millionaires don't use astrology, but billionaires do, right? And there are astrologers who just study the market and have done so for millennia. I mean, the original astrology, as far as there's astrology everywhere all through time. But as far back as we can prove is Babylonia, where the astrologers were documenting everything. And we have these records. They were documenting the price of rice, the price of beans, the price of everything, what happened to the king that day. And as well, measuring it against what was happening in the sky. And a lot of astrology came from that. And it was obsessive scientific research. It was scientific. It was literally documenting observations. And then over hundreds and thousands of years, piecing it together and saying, okay, well, when the moon does this, there's a potential for the price over here to do that. And so, yeah, it's a big industry, and it's not something that I personally do because I just don't really play the market at this stage in my life. Please help me change that, people.
So there's like a parallel walk to this, and I think so, and at least you can correct me if I'm wrong here. But in addition to like astrology is like this form of, is divination even the right word to use here? Would divination and astrology mean be adjacent to each other?
Yes, well, they're adjacent. Of course, they're
Okay,
adjacent.
well, help
That's
me
the whole conversation.
explain me the yes, and then explain me the no, because that would be helpful going forward.
It depends on how you use it, right? Because astrology, my preferred use of astrology is less divination and more, look, this is the energy that's hitting your chart, and based on certain mathematical arrangements, specific angles to your chart as the planets move around, and other techniques as well, which we'll leave out. Um, this specific planet, which means this, is specifically affecting this planet in your chart, which means this whole range of things. And so your best bet to get through this stressful time coming up is going to be to align with what this outer planet wants, or what this specific arrangement wants. That's not really divination. That's more just looking at the energies coming at you and going forward. Now, when it comes to divination, I practice horary astrology. That is divination. And that is very specifically the practice of, and this gets really crazy, and this breaks people's ability to believe in astrology if you haven't experienced it, which is someone asks you a question, and in that moment you cast a chart of exactly where everything is in that moment, and the answer is in the sky in that moment. And that sounds really insane to people, but that's actually the easiest astrology.
Can you give me a practical example of that?
Oh yeah. I'm far more accurate in my horary practice than I am, and I'm not saying I'm not accurate with natal charts. I am. I do help people, and I'm able to point out time periods. But a human life, so you're born, you have a natal chart, and everything that happens in your life is described by that natal chart. And you can lean into it in a more positive or more negative way. It's all there. But that's, 80, 90, 101 years of you living that chart. And so figuring out where, and there are different techniques to zone in, these Time Lord systems where you zone in on a specific part of the chart for a specific time of life to figure out which parts of the chart are highlighted and when promise is going to be enacted, right? But that's a large frame to read a chart in. A whole life. Some people have been absolute villains at one point and reformed and become saints. You have this broad spectrum. It's more complicated. It's more difficult to do. Now, when you're talking about horary, you're talking about one question in one moment, and it's specific. It's, am I gonna catch the bus today? And you've confined it to such a very specific question that it's very easy to answer, because there aren't a lot of variables. Okay. Now,
but there's only some, right? Like a plane could literally drop an engine and land on you on the way bus, and then you didn't make it, even though everything else was aligned.
And that crazy stuff can happen. And then you're like, oh, I got that chart wrong. And then you go back and you look at the chart and you're like, oh, it was in the chart, but I wasn't looking.
Oh, my bad.
I wasn't looking for plane engine dropping on the purpose. You're asking for an example. And instead of going down a long rabbit hole to explain it, I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's called A Harrowing Horary Chart. And that's a really interesting one where I lay out exactly what happened and how.
If I can figure out how to do it, which I haven't yet, I'll do one of those things where you can click a link up here. But there's probably a huge chance I'm just looking like an idiot and there's nothing on top of the screen because I couldn't figure it out. But if I could figure it out, it should be right there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of. It gets to the point where it's I have specific examples, but I don't want to tell personal stories for people, right?
Well, and we don't give any spoiler alerts for anyone out there that doesn't want to know when they have to die.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I wouldn't predict a death. I that's not something that I've ever done.
Really?
That's not a fun reading.
Well, okay. Well, not personally, but it does seem that there's a growing trend of predicting celebrity deaths or predicting that based on astrological symbols and movies and TMZ reports and a combination. It's oh man, they're this celebrity's about to go out or so-and-so's about to go out. It seems like it's its own niche. You could probably find a podcast that is dedicated to predicting celebrity deaths using astrology.
Sure.
And if not, we should talk about starting one after this show.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll do the predictions. I'll call all the names out.
Well, do you want to live with the feeling that, oh, did I just curse that celebrity?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if there's an unforgivable sin, it's denial of the Holy Spirit. And as long as I don't do that, I'm freaking golden, bro. I can do anything I want as long as I don't deny the Holy Spirit, which I absolutely don't. You totally exist, Holy Spirit. Shout out, Holy Spirit. Proof. I got documented proof that I have not violated that one rule.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I won't take it from you.
Thank you. My saving grace. Okay, so in that regard, okay, I'm not going to force you to predict anyone's death, and I think that we've agreed that there's probably a niche group of people that care enough about your death date as they do about your birth date, but there's nothing really documented because it is such a taboo in every single political system, every religious system. Like, nobody wants you to do that, including us, so please don't. But then there's like this concept of, say, like a King Kill 33 ritual, where now it's, and correct me or feel free to, like, conject here, but like King Kill 33 is more about the season of someone's life, that if you can see that they are in like the winter of their life, then maybe it is time to like take them out, otherwise it gets worse. And I guess the origin of this King Kill 33 of like the James Shelby Downard, it gets pulled in a lot of conspiratorial and like Freemasonic kind of things, but really the concept, as I understand it, is that you want a transition of power to be when that energy and that power is at its peak, or when it's at its like apex, and not necessarily when it's fully declined. Like, if it's declining, it's like, now's a good time to pass the baton. But if you wait until it fully declines and your leader basically just like dies in office from being too old or sick, that is unfavorable, and that like you want this transition energy, and that it feels astrological. But tell me if I'm putting too much on that.
There's a lot there. So first off, I haven't read the book, but I mean, I've heard it.
You probably get the idea of what it generally means.
So there's a few different things. So first off, we're in eclipse season right now, which is important because this relates to all of this. So we just had a lunar eclipse yesterday, and the solar eclipse is going to happen in 2 weeks.
Oh, congratulations, Moon.
It survived. It survived. So now eclipses have always portended the birth and death of kings. And like Donald Trump was born on a lunar eclipse, a full lunar eclipse, by the way, like real serious. And so the House of Windsor, entirely like all born on eclipses. Like, it's crazy when you get into this. This is just a fact of life. Kings are born on eclipses, and they die on eclipses. This is,
and Windsor's a fake name, right? That's their non-Germanic name.
Coburg.
Yeah, okay. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but just asterisk. It's a German name, and they made up the whole. Yeah, okay.
Right. So the sort of, like I was saying, in Babylonia, which is as far back as we can really trace astrology, which I'm 100% on board that every culture uses astrology and always has. As long as humans have been here, astrology's been here, 100%. But as far back as we can actually historically trace it, the king's natal chart was the chart of the nation. Okay. And this is important, and this is still in effect. So when people are, when they were doing their like rituals to like curse Trump, it's like, you understand you are cursing your nation, whether you support the guy or not. If you're cursing his chart, you're cursing your whole nation. You're cursing yourself. So this is an important point. So if that chart is in decline, because that figurehead, even if it's just a figurehead, right? Even if it's just the person that everyone's putting their energy on, and really they're the secret advisors behind the king's ear, worm tongue in his ear, even if that's going on, that the person that everyone's putting their energy on represents the entire nation. Okay. So it makes sense to me that if they're on the decline and you see difficult things in their chart, you want to get them out of office. And maybe you do want to kill them. Maybe that's a ritual that goes on. Now, the other part of that is the Fool on the Throne ritual, right? Which is the astrologers see this difficult eclipse coming up, and they're like, "We got to get you out of here. We got a new king." And they put the Fool on the throne, and they treat him like a king for a month during the eclipse ritual, and then they're gone. And it's the sacrificial goat, right? So that's a few layers to what you're talking about there.
Okay, I mean, I like that whole concept of having like a sacrificial eclipse president. Like, maybe we should like elect in addition to a vice president, we also get an eclipse president that we just put. And it seems like there would actually be some kind of karmic relief to the actual president if you were to do that. No,
Thomas Biden was an eclipse president.
okay, it's a fair point. A sundown president, you might call him.
Yes, you had that full solar eclipse, which path crossed the entire United States, entering in Texas, by the way, which is interesting. I'm fully convinced that's what that was. That's why they got Trump out for 4 years.
Another thing that, and this is maybe tangential to astrology, but it's the same kind of like divination aspect, which we've already kind of like dissected a little bit, but that these tools of divination or these astrological style of tools, it seems that inevitably on a long enough timeline, every single one of them turns into a product, and then it turns into almost an inversion of itself. So I'll give you some practical examples, because astrology has taken, it's more easy to compare it to like a 900 number sort of culture. But if you were to look at, say, tarot cards and their evolution from tarot to poker cards to video poker to now like unboxing loot crates in Fortnite or whatever the thing is, right? Like playing Roblox blind boxes or something. What are the Lululemon dolls or whatever? Like that's the sequence of events, right? Like it started out as this tool for divination, and then the same thing like the Wheel of Fortune started as like a philosophical concept, and then it turns into an actual game show or like a roulette wheel. But these things are based on something that used to be held sacred and for kings and for, telling, giving you a guide in life. And now it's something that you just like lose your savings on.
Okay. So when it comes to tarot started as playing cards. You're actually missing that part of the story. Initially, they were a game that people turned into a divination system. It actually started as something, well, I don't want to say the word frivolous. It started as a game, but games are real. The imaginal realm is real. So when you put your energy into a game, it can become a divination system. You're putting your imagination there, and the imagination is real. I mean, any creative person, any artist, I would imagine, has created a work of prophecy. I mean, you're a creative person. Have you created something that then came real in your life?
I mean, I live with a homunculus, so yes.
Okay.
I needed extra rent money, and I figured it was a good use of one.
So the idea of people, and so people are playing games and they're gambling on it. They're putting all this emotional energy into it. They're putting their life savings on the line, right? And from there, it became a system of divination. From there, it's like, oh, I don't want to see the Queen of Spades come up, and the Queen of Spades comes up, and you lose your life savings. Well, suddenly it attains this very negative divinatory quality, right? So it actually grew out of games and came back to games, but it's all one and the same.
Interesting. I actually never even heard that before. So
Yeah.
that was a wrench and part of my thinking on like the profanity of sort of Vegas, I guess. But I guess it also, maybe it's just cyclical. Maybe it's the same way as anything else that I guess you're describing, is that the sun's going to rise and it's going to set and it's going to rise again. So maybe we're just going through a natural ebb and flow of poker cards going from divination to grandma loses her life savings back to divination again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about you some more and some astrology things. So for example, is there like a really good astrology movie? I know there's a movie in the 1970s called The Astrologist, but it kind of sucks.
Yeah, because if it's called The Astrologist, it's got to suck.
I guess so, yeah. Does anything just come to mind if I say like best astrology movie or like astrologically aligned movie? It doesn't have to be a movie about astrology, but it just like it is, even though they didn't realize it was when they made it.
Well, I guess 2001. I mean, really.
2001 Space Odyssey. It's just anything Kubrick or that movie in particular?
Well, it's all aligned to all the major motion, like we were just talking about, are all eclipses, right? Now, another fascinating thing, David, Charles Plate, talks a lot about the end of the movie being 23 minutes and 27 seconds, which aligns perfectly with Pink Floyd's Echoes, right? Like this is a very famous sync. That's After Wizard of Oz, that's the most famous one, I think, is that goes to Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite at the end. What's fascinating about that I think a lot of people don't realize is 23 degrees and 27 minutes of declination, which is the height of things measured against the celestial equator. Or no, measured against the ecliptic. No, measured against the celestial equator. Okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So basically, the sun at the Tropic of Cancer is at 23 degrees and 27 minutes of latitude. Okay. And at the Tropic of Capricorn, it's at 23 degrees and 27 minutes south. Okay.
Okay, so it's symmetrical. It's like like astrological sort of palindrome.
That's as far as the sun can get, and that's the path of the ecliptic. And it gets to zero at the equinoxes, okay? But the planets all have their own nodes where they rise above, they go north and they go south. Okay. Every planet has its own relationship to the sun and its path. So the planets that have their nodes where they go north in the summer signs and south in the winter signs can be above or below that maximum elongation of the sun. And that's what we call out of bounds in astrology. And it implies a planet that has breached the barriers of reality almost. And the end is breaching the barriers of reality, right? And I find it fascinating that he timed that whole sequence out to be exactly the point where you break the bounds of the ecliptic, but you don't break the bounds of the ecliptic. Now, what I find, because it's 23:28 is beyond. Okay, if I see 23 degrees 28 minutes north or south, I'm like, oh, that planet is out of bounds, and that's going to be a really important planet in that person's chart, really problematic in certain ways. Now, in the original novel, they go to Saturn, right, to get beyond,
right, in 2001.
And beyond, and this is all these ancient cults and rituals were all about getting beyond Saturn, because Saturn is the bounds of our reality. That's the furthest planet we can see with our eyes. It was always the bounds of reality, and it has rings around it, so it is actually enclosed and encased. So it's fascinating to me that he brings the movie right up to the point where you would break reality, but you don't, and then he brings it to Jupiter. And Jupiter is knowledge and wisdom, and it's the great benefic and the charts, but he doesn't go past Saturn. So what does that say? I don't even know, right? Like it's an open question in my mind. But I have read theories where Space Odyssey is all I don't know. Some people believe it's all a government plot, like within the context of the movie, that these guys aren't actually out in space. It's all a work for whatever reason. I don't know. It's one bizarre element that, to me, sort of indicates that, because they don't get
well, it could just be B-roll from the Apollo missions. And they were like, they had so much cut footage, they were like, we can make a movie out of this.
It should have been the A-roll, because what they use looks like C-roll. But anyways.
It kind of was. It was the predictive programming. We'll actually get into that very, very shortly. The same way that I was asking if you've got like an astrological movie, is there like astrological music? Is it Tool? You can say it's Tool, even though it's predictable.
Well, I mean, my astrology teacher invented an instrument that ties the I Ching and astrology together. It's a 68 stringed instrument.
What's it called?
The celestial harp. You can search it up online when you edit this. If you want to just throw a picture of it, it's amazing. He built it himself, and I mean, this came from visions he had in India, being in a black room for 13 months. Just chanting like. And he got these visions, and you didn't even know what they were.
Do you play one?
Well, there's only one. I've played it. Yeah, I mean, I've recorded stuff with him.
He only made one. One.
It's this giant box. Like it's not in mass production here.
Is he open to mass production?
Oh, he would love to. He would love to.
Let's talk. That sounds so cool. I could absolutely. I love this whole room's filled with music equipment. So yeah, we're gonna absolutely have to talk about that. That sounds like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, you'll have to look into it. And I mean, I grew up with it, right? Like, he doesn't live close to me, but we used to visit him, and he'd visit us. And when I visit him, I get to play it. And it because it has 68 strings around this solid, it's basically it's a square, but it has different geometric patterns within it, and it's meant for multiple people to play it. And you can play someone's zodiac, you can play their chart, right? and but the strings just resonate with whatever you do in the room. So you can just use it as this piece of ambience if whatever you're recording, right? Because the strings are going to be resonating with it. It's incredible.
Okay. So I'm going to start bringing us home because this is getting in a dangerous tangent material. But bro, I've got another podcast that I do infrequently, but it's a great pod. It's called Sound Science, and usually we'll like interview musicians about their favorite albums and stuff. Like, man, I would love to do a Sound Science where we like recreate this celestial harp in a way that it makes it accessible for like more people to like play and I don't know. I want to brainstorm about that. But first, here's this.
Hey, conspiracy buffs, I double dare you to take some PCP, the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe. On your marks, get set, and go!
All right, you've been warned, and also my camera always turns off when I do this. You've been warned about this entire segment, and here's the rules. I'm just going to mention a topic, and I want you to kind of judge it. I want you to be very judgmental and rate it on a scale from 1 to 10 on how much you actually believe in one of these topics, or how much credit you give it, I'd say is a better way to phrase that.
So 1 is like skeptical, and 10 is like
correct. Yeah, one is like this is absolute BS, and 10 is not only is this real, but I can convince you it's real. Like I am so into this. 5, this one's hard. Like 5, I usually take that to be like you're on the fence, like you could be swayed either way. But some people, and you're free to interpret that as like, if I were to ask you a question, you're like a 5 out of 10 on believing it, which indicates more than nothing. But I usually treat, okay, so that's over explaining the rating system here. It's just a 1 to 10. So if I were to say Bigfoot, where do you put Bigfoot on the scale from 1 to 10?
I want to believe. 5.
Psychics.
10.
Flat Earth.
2.
Tartaria.
5.
Shape-shifting reptilians, David Icke style.
Can I qualify, or you just want the number?
You can qualify. Let's keep it brief, but yeah, feel free to qualify.
I mean, if you're talking about interdimensional entities that are like inhabiting, well,
that's like 2010s Ike. I'm talking like late 90s, early 2000s Ike.
Like I go 5.
Physical manifestation. Okay. How about Greys?
Well, they exist in the imaginal. I'd go like 8, I guess.
Okay, and I gotta say Nordics. Just we're about inclusion on this podcast, so
I don't want to get canceled, so I'm gonna say 4.
Okay. How about that we're all living in a simulation?
It's not a computer, but I mean 10 almost. 9 maybe. I'd go 9 on that, but I wouldn't call it a computer program.
What about full-blown solipsism, either for me or you? Like we're just so either one of us is a brain in a vat, and everything that's not you is just something that was designed to just trigger your impulses in some capacity, which I guess is kind of like simulation theory, but it's more of like an egotistical version. It's like it's all being simulated for me.
Yeah, it's both a 10 and a 1 because it's true. It's true, but also we're all 1 anyways. So
you're rating it from the outside and the inside of the pickle jar that the brain is inside.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, rating from 1 to 10 that I'm an agnostic atheist, let's say, and I order a book called How to Summon a Demon for Dummies on Amazon. It gets printed on demand, and I say that because it doesn't get like magically imbibed through some wizard handling it or anything. It just comes right out of a freaking digital printer, never touched by human hands, lands on your doorstep. 1 to 10 that you can summon a demon using that book at some point.
9.
JFK was an inside job.
There's no scale for that. It's 10. It's 10.
All right. Let's go down the list real quick. 9/11.
10.
Oklahoma.
10.
Waco.
Well, what are you asking about Waco?
That it was planned to be a tragedy from the start. In fact, I'm all about sort of like spectrums, right? That 1 to 10 is a spectrum. So the spectrum on Waco, if you were to consider this an inside job, one end of that spectrum is Baphomet needs a sacrifice astrologically. We need to figure out how to give like a classic Greek, sacrifice by fire, babies screaming, the whole 9 yards. And then there's the other, like, we need to make an example out of these crazy hicks and show everyone to stay in line. But both of those imply that the solution or the outcome that we all saw was somewhat orchestrated, whether on the fly or pre-advanced, but that ultimately it wasn't just like, oops, we didn't think the closed CS gas was going to start a fire, or that they did it themselves, whatever. So where are you at? Where are you at? 1 to 10, Waco was an inside job.
5, I guess. I'll go 5.
Ruby Ridge, but I just have to say that for inclusionary purposes. I don't want to be racist against Randy Weaver.
That they planned it to be like a message to
Yeah.
Ruby Ridge. Yeah, that's like a 7 or 8, I think.
Okay, nice. How about gematria?
Everything can sync. I mean, I'm pretty skeptical of a lot of gematria. I mean, sometimes it drives me nuts, but I mean, it can work. So like,
what parts drive you nuts?
If you're going to take every word that you hear and put it through 7 different gematria calculators to find the response you need, like, it's too much. You need to refine it. It needs to be like, I only use this calculation and this is my thing.
Well, you only have to go to occultdecode.com, which is the one that I made. It's totally free, and you can match it against a bunch of different ciphers, and I know exactly what you're talking about. At least you only have to go to one website. But what you're implying is that if you type in a word and you've got 50 different ciphers to pick from, you've got the Latin and the Hebrew and the ordinal and the inverted ordinal and the reverse, this and that, and then you're basically trying to find, how can I make evil and Trump match, right? Like, let me search through every cipher and then find the things that match, and then only cherry pick every single thing. Is that what you're implying?
Yeah, basically, yeah. I also just find, in terms of, like, because I really enjoy sync work, it's one of the lesser interesting paths. Like it's hard to tell a story that way. You're just like, oh, these numbers equal this, as opposed to, did you have a reason for looking at that word and using that specific cipher? Was Latin included in this sort of narrative you're going through, and Latin led you to look at the Latin cipher? Then I'm enthused. You know what I mean? It's more, what's the path?
I know we're wading into dangerous territory that I would consider salesmanship. And I don't disagree. I'm agreeing with you, but from an objective outside perspective, that it would almost be indistinguishable from genuine versus salesmanship to be able to have a compelling story about why a gematria artist went a certain way, because they could easily just make that crap up on the fly. Oh, I picked Latin because John Dee used Latin. And like, that's not really why you did that. You did that because it like the answer that you were going for, you saw it floating out there, and you're like, how can I plug this into my formula to make sense based on what I'm seeing? Okay, so rate gematria 1 to 10.
Like 7. Give it a 7.
How about unforgivable sin? And this is a very Catholic question, but you can reinterpret this outside of Catholicism easily. Is there something that you can do in this lifetime that karmically is, you're screwed for the rest of your life because you did this? And I don't mean like chopping off your leg or something.
Geez, I'd probably go 9 on that. But then there's the question of future lives, coming back and karmically dealing with whatever happened.
Future lives can figure out what is the unforgivable sin. Future lives can deal with it, but like, what do you think it actually is?
The most unforgivable sin is, harming other people in any way is unforgivable.
Oh man, that's a pretty low, like, high bar. I mean, I don't know, man.
Absolutely. The most unforgivable sin is harming people that you have a responsibility to take care of. So, like, and
but doesn't everyone do that? Isn't that basically the human story? Is that you hurt the people that you are the closest to because you've got the most opportunity to?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's not unforgivable, because that's up to the person to forgive. I mean, is there I don't know. Like, once someone's dead, how do you get forgiveness, right? If you kill someone.
Okay, well, no, let me clarify. I guess I mean forgiveness from like the universe or God or whatever you consider source. Is there something that you could do that would be so offensive that you're not invited to Thanksgiving anymore?
You know what? It's not my question to answer. How can I answer for the universe? Oh, I am the universe. I am God. Okay, well, yeah. Be nice to people. We'll see if I forgive you or not.
Okay. And I guess the inverse of that is could you be sinless? Is there something that you could
No,
do that
no,
would
that's
make
not
you so
reality.
divine? No, not at
That's
all.
not reality. No, that's not the purpose of reality. Reality is flawed. We're here to experience the flaws and improve the flaws if we can. Find meaning out of that.
So well, let me ask you, where are you at, like, religious wise? Like, would you is there any denomination or sect or name that you identify with in any case?
No, no, not really.
What and you said upbringing was more like Protestant. That was kind of
Yeah,
the
it was
template that
Protestant.
you got introduced to.
Yeah, and not that I deny the power of Christ and the power of the Hebrew God, but it I mean it all works. They're all real. Everything's real. It's all going on in the imaginal realm. It's all happening, and it has
Okay,
power.
well, okay, with that as the segue for this, and I was asking about, like, could you be sinless? Wouldn't a true Christ-like figure, be sinless by definition, or no? Like, that he is here to be free of sin, so that everyone else gets absolved of their sins through him. If he's got any sin at all, then that formula is screwed.
Yeah, and I mean, you have things you can think about within the Christ story. Like he exhibits anger, so anger is not a sin, then, right? Like so long as it's directed at people who deserve anger. Um, if there was a Christ figure, if he was the Son of God and sinless, but then that's like a literal incarnation of God. But then maybe we're all incarnations of God. I mean, we're who knows? I don't know. That's I
Uh,
mean, I
you have
know
to
I'm not
you
sinless.
have to rate that one too. I need a rating
A
on
rating. Can
sinless,
there be a
1 to 10.
sinless individual? I put it at about a 2 or a 3. A 2 or a 3.
Okay, you got to leave a little room in there for
Be-
Mormon second anointing, I assume.
The second anoint. Oh, so what is that, like born again
I'm
ritual?
oversimplifying this, but there is a rumored top dog level of Mormonism called the second anointing, and once you hit this level, you essentially can get away with murder, and you're guaranteed to still go to Mormon heaven and get in your own planet and, like, do all the things that are promised to you because you've got such a direct personal connection that, and I'm talking way more into this than I have authority to. Like, you've got such a direct connection that anything that you do is justified because ultimately it's like the Pope, dude. The Pope could probably, like, murder somebody and be forgiven for it because he's like, hey, God told me that guy was gonna, like, antichrist it up or something.
Right. Well, I mean, there are secret societies that used to do rituals, like these born again rituals, to create a new astrological chart. Because the idea was you banish your natal chart and you have a new one. And there are arguments that the baptism of Christianity is that as well. That the proper baptism would be to elect a better chart, with less problems. And that goes back to the original baptism being literally being held underwater for like 5 minutes, so that you basically have a near death experience.
Dude,
That's
that was me. That was literally, yeah. I
You went
almost
through that?
drowned at my baptism. Yep, that's
Wow,
true.
amazing. You got to get the time. I need that chart. See, I'm working with the wrong chart.
I know. See, and I believe because would that be my new first breath? Like your first gasp of air after being baptized. So now everyone's got like a Christian
Yeah,
baptismal natal chart too.
there's
It
an
gets
argument for that.
complicated, doesn't it?
There's an argument for that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I don't know how the Catholic Church would look upon this. Where do you know of any point in time that like Catholics or Protestants actively used natal charts? Like you were saying
Yes.
kings, so I
Yeah, yeah.
assume that like most kings were of Christendom,
So my astrology teacher, I forget the name of the bishop that he befriended, but this bishop went and got, I think it was a bishop, got him a list of all the astrological texts in the Vatican Library. And so you can go on his website. He's got a billion websites, but Rasa or Robin Armstrong, you can search. He's got an article where he wrote up all the astrological texts that they keep in their library. So that's pretty persuasive.
that they're allowed to talk about.
Yeah, or at least within the Jesuit order or whatever, right? Like they've got, when you're up there, you're doing that stuff. And I mean,
Show
it was,
sponsors, by the way. Shout out to the Jesuits.
and of course, there are traditions where certain, like the 4 royal stars are the archangels. And the Catholic Church actually tried to rebrand the zodiac into the 12 apostles. So you can see that like they will have zodiacs, but it'll be the apostles in different churches or temples and such. Yeah.
When it comes to the zodiac and astrology and horoscopes and all this, like, is this on the wane? Is it on the rise in terms of being accepted? Has it always had some sort of like a neutral balance?
There's always an ebb and flow. And astrologers have always been criminalized too. There's always.
So where are we at right now in 2025? Are we ebbing or flowing?
We have been ebbing, which is partially because Neptune was in Pisces, and Neptune is dreams and these mystical experiences, and it naturally correlates to Pisces. Pisces is big, broad spectrum thinking. While Neptune was in Pisces, astrology and magical practices had an absolute explosion, like in popular culture. Like it kind of killed the really that really atheistic movement, like Richard Dawkins and these people. Like they kind of went on the decline since Neptune has been in Pisces. Now Neptune has just moved into Aries. So the question is, we're probably going to ebb back down, I would think. I think it's gonna start to flow. And we could also, with Pluto and Aquarius, it really implies stricter measures on controls of freedom of speech on the internet, very specifically. I mean, a lot of astrologers are assuming that in this time frame we're moving into, we could see laws against it, the government cracking down on it.
On astrology?
Could be, yeah. It's happened because there are laws where it's like you can't practice divination or witchcraft and all this stuff. And astrologers have always successfully defended it based on religious freedom. And but there's always, because in the past, like even in like the Roman era and stuff, where there were eras where it was illegal to practice, but the Caesar, the king the emperor would have his astrologer, and he'd get the information, they'd kill the astrologer.
Oh yeah. Here, you're gonna bring me down this tangent. You don't have any choice now. So like I have this historical conspiracy theory that I mean I came across it organically. I'm sure this is not an original thought, because thoughts are just thought forms that turn into desire forms that turn into physical forms, right? But that the downfall of the entire Phoenician Empire and the Canaanites and the Carthaginians, that all of that was simply a shift from everyone is allowed to do magic out in public. In fact, it's required. It is state mandated that you do magic out in public. To, well, now only the elites can do it, and you have to do it underground. You have to do it in secrecy. But that it never really changed. It was just that at one point, like you were obligated to do it by the state, and then they kind of made it like they banned it. It's like divination is under prohibition still.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always been that ebb and flow. Always, always, always. And even when there was state sanctioned cults, there were always the esoteric cults that weren't sanctioned, right? Who were doing their own magic in the caves and everything. So it's always been that way. And we came out of a situation where this stuff was really, especially socially stigmatized, right? And it's not nearly as socially stigmatized right now, but it's going to go back down at some point.
What are you referring to that it was stigmatized?
Any magical practice that isn't the state sanctioned religion, right? And Catholicism has magical practices. But it's
yeah, their magic is hell, man. They bring people back from the dead. They like transubstantiation. You can't convince me that is not identical to magic. You are manifesting through some sort of divine means that you are claiming that a physical change has happened in our physical shared reality objectively. Yep. Like that, in my mind, that's the definition of magic.
Yeah, it was real boring being raised a Presbyterian. I'll tell you that much.
I'm telling you, man. The guy, I in the military, I was a chaplain, and I got to sort of be chaplain assistant through all the different Christian denominations because they'd be shorthanded, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I do the Catholic mass, but why not do Baptist and Protestant and all these other? And man, they're just drinking like grape juice, and I was just like, man, it's gonna suck when you guys get the hell. And they're like, what am I doing here? And they're like, bro, you guys were drinking grape juice. What is this, a joke to you? Like, I feel bad for all of them, but it was also one of the more fun church services, which is also how I know that they were all going to hell. Because in the middle of this is Protestant, they would play freaking movie clips from like Forrest Gump and stuff as like these inspirational little segments. And it blew my mind for the first time, because it's like, bro, in church, you're supposed to be quiet, and then you kneel, and then you stand, and then you sit, and everyone tells you what to do. And if you even freaking sneeze or cough, like, you kind of offended God, and you have to go and like repent for that. And these guys over here on the other side of this wall are drinking grape juice and watching Forrest Gump. I don't know. It was crazy. I pray for their souls every day, because they're gonna all burn in hell.
That's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
And so here's another thing too. I told you I was going to go down a tangent when you mentioned the incense in the Catholic Church, and I guess I feel that there's also a patchouli incense connection to astrology as well, because if I smell patchouli or frankincense or some kind of incense, I'm either thinking Catholic Mass, or I'm thinking someone's reading tarot cards and doing star charts. and part of the reason, and I think this is NLP related, not that NLP invented this, because this was a thing that came out in the 70s, but that when you go into like these old Catholic cathedrals back in the day, it's the only time you smell these specific smells. It's the only time you might even see the specific colors coming from the stained glass. There might not be anything in, hundreds of miles that are going to make that particular color of purple that you'll ever see. So you go into this place and you're transported literally into seeing different colors and smelling different things and hearing different sounds and acoustics that are surreal, that are otherworldly. And then after you're done, you go back to the farm and you open your farmer's almanac and you just smell, cow patties for like the rest of the week. And then you go back and you're transported. And there's sort of another similar element to that with like astrology and getting like, again, forgive me if I bring like palmistry into here, but like this alternative way of therapy or getting news or getting guidance on what you should do with your life. And it feels like even if it's not intentional, like it very much helps you transition. Like you walk into Hot Topic and you smell or Spencer's Gifts, and you like smell that Spencer Gift smell. You're like, oh, like I know the environment that I'm in. And I'm just wondering, is there like a practical use, not an NLP use, for using like olfactory triggers or like NLP anchor style triggers in astrology?
Oh yes, this is the core of planetary magic. Absolutely. The incense, and even in because I went to my cousin's funeral recently, so I did attend a Catholic Mass recently, and he explains that it's a metaphor. The smoke is a metaphor for sending our prayers to God. Well, this is exactly the same in every single practice around the world, which is that smoke itself sends your intentions up to heaven or to the spirit realm, one and the same essentially. And so frankincense specifically is a solar scent, and this is well documented in these ancient grimoires. Frankincense is solar, and I believe that the Catholic incense is generally frankincense and myrrh, right?
Right.
Myrrh is of Saturn. So this is really fascinating because the Old Testament is very Saturnian in nature. It's very much about the rules, and it's about the boundaries of reality, and it's about lineage and ancestry.
It's the cranky old man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Saturn, and that's myrrh. Now, Christ is the solar figure. You could also argue Christ is very Jupiterian, but really, I mean, all the rituals and all the festivities for Christ surround the rebirth of the sun. It's his Christmas, his birth is literally 3 days after the winter solstice, when the sun rises again. You see it rising on the horizon from its sort of stationary point as low as it'll go on the ecliptic. And Easter is celebrated the first weekend after the first full moon after the equinox. That's why it's not the same date every year, which means that it's the first weekend of the year. And so there are also, it's all planetary magic. That's what drives me nuts when they're like, we don't do this stuff. It's like, yeah, because Friday is Venus Day, and Saturday is Saturn Day, and Sunday is the sun. And so Jesus is reborn on Sunday, right? Is that not the tradition? Or?
I mean, wouldn't it shift though? Wouldn't it shift depending on what exact year he was born?
Well, no, but I'm talking about how we celebrate it. Good Friday is always a Friday. It's always Venus Day, which is interesting. That's the day he dies. That's very interesting on Venus Day. But it's always a weekend. They align it to the planetary days, and he rises again on Sunday. But it's also after the sun is finally, there's more light than darkness. And then on the first full moon, there is light for 24 hours a day for the first time since the fall equinox. Because as on a full moon, as the sun sets, the moon rises. So you have light in the sky. And so really the Easter being born again is about the light. And I mean, which isn't to say it's not real and Christ didn't do that and Christ didn't exist. That's not even the point. It's that the heavens replicate and show the story. Like, I mean, if God's doing something, is he not going to give signs and wonders everywhere?
100%. Yeah, and again, you don't have to self-censor or justify anything. If you blaspheme, you get to burn in hell forever, not me. Like whatever you want to say.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I mean that though. I mean that. It's like I don't mean to denigrate it, because literally it could be real, and it doesn't mean that it's just astrotheology. You know, it doesn't mean that we're just telling stories about the sky. It's like I live a life where what happens in the sky is real and affects us on Earth. So of course, if you're going to have a Messiah come down and be sacrificed for everyone's sins, the story will be told in the sky. You know, it's going to happen either way.
Okay, I'm gonna bring us home now, but I also want to put a nice bookend on this too, because I feel more at home being the skeptic, just because I had like oppositional defiant disorder all throughout school, and it was always my dad has described a trait in himself that I kind of identify with, and it's like if my favorite flavor of ice cream was vanilla, and you told me that your favorite ice cream was vanilla, I'd be like, I don't know, man, chocolate's pretty good. Have you not had chocolate? Like, even if we both agree, like I still feel, and it's not out of being a dick. It's just out of like me trying to test my own bounds on like a lot of this stuff. So I guess like my defense of astrology in that vein of thinking, and stepping outside of just being pugilistic about it and like confrontational, is that of course the position of stars and where the sun and where the moon at would affect you. It literally determines how the waves are moving back and forth in the ocean. And if you don't think that something that's if you believe in space, sorry, I got to leave that like little sliver there, but if you believe in space, that like the moon is causing the waves and to like go out and recede, and you don't think that affects you as well, and you don't think that the sun that controls whether or not the food and the animals and the plants that we all consume and give us life, they're reliant on the sun and the moon. So of course we are. So it feels like there's such an obvious level to it that really astrology is more about like, okay, where on that spectrum, like how minute and how specific do I care about it? If the sun goes away forever, we all die. Like that's astrology, right? Yeah. I don't know what happens when the moon blows up. We'll find out when the CIA decides to do that, I assume.
Yeah.
So there you go. There's my defense of astrology in general as well. I'm not a complete naysayer. I absolutely believe that it has some kind of impact on us, and I feel that the more content and the more shows that we do together on SyncTank, I'm looking forward to it. Tell people all the different places they can find you, so they can get like a whole background and kind of get like ramped up to speed on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My mind is going through all the threads I didn't even get to answer with you, because we had a really great conversation.
We'll have a part 2 and a part 3, and we'll keep going, man. Don't worry.
Okay, but at any rate, my Patreon, Facing North Astrology, on Patreon, so you can check it out, because I will do astrological work for you based on the tier that you join. The bottom tier, we talked about horror a little bit. I'll do horror questions for you. That doesn't take a lot of time. You know, you can say, hey, I got a question, and we'll work out a time, and I'll do it via messages. I mean, there's daily posts on there. There's a lot going on aside from, but really the purpose of the Patreon is, you know, if you don't want to book a full reading, if you're a little skeptical, well, pay for a month. Or if you go to one of the higher tiers, you know, I'll take your chart on. If you got questions, I'll type it up. I'll write it. Or if you want to book a reading, get at me there, or Twitter. I'm Foul Pulp on Twitter. I'm Noah Campbell on Facebook. I have a blog spot, Facing North Astro, at Blogspot. I have more substantial articles there. You can really dig in. But yeah, that's where it's at.
Let me open up one final can of worms before we depart here. Is AI going to eat astrologer lunch?
That's a good question. Okay, so multifaceted, and my answer to that changes all the time because it's getting better, right? I mean, when I first tried it out, it was giving answers that were straight up wrong, like
Right.
incorrect. Like that's
Well,
not
the popular saying is that this exact moment is the worst that it's ever going to be.
Wait, what?
That whenever you're talking about AI, whether it's images or text
Right,
or
right,
anything,
right.
this moment, like the moment I'm speaking at this exact moment, it's
Yep.
never going to be worse than this. It's only
Yep.
going to improve from this moment. And I say this moment because literally tomorrow there could be some new breakthrough, and then the day after that there could be another breakthrough.
Okay, so currently, AI doesn't seem to have access to good ephemerides, so it doesn't seem to have accurate information about where things are at specific times. And I could be wrong. Maybe tomorrow I'm proved wrong on that. So that's what it is good at. What it's really interesting at is if you plug in, oh, I have Neptune in this sign and it's being aspected by this planet here. What can you say about Mars square Neptune? It spits out some really interesting stuff from just pulling from all these different astrologers. Now, the problem is if you want to get if you don't know what you're looking for specifically, I don't think it's useful to you right now. But what the astrologer, so there's different layers to this. What the astrologer does is pinpoint what's important. So if you had an astrologer tell you, look at your chart and go, oh, look at this, type this into Grok or whatever, and let it tell you what's going on there, you'll get interesting information. You'll get good information. But there's a separate point to that, which is that it's not just a scientific assessment of what's going on in the sky. It's a magical act. There are intuitions and impulses which come in, which clarify this infinity of information, because you can take one chart and you can study it your entire life and keep learning things about it. So how do you know what to pinpoint? And I don't know that AI will ever get good at that. That's the point. And there's also, I mean, when you're getting a reading from someone, there's a personal emotional connection, which is important. It's an important part of it, because the astrologer, if they're good, sees the problems you're going through and can empathize with it, and then can find good solutions in the real world. What the limit of what AI can do, who knows, right? We'll find out.
All right, last question, because I wanted to ask this earlier and I get slipped my mind. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Michael Sarion. You don't have to be if you're not.
What does he do? The name rings a bell.
So he had a series called Origin and Oracles that was in the late 90s or the early 2000s, and he got really big for like a part in time, but he's very informed about astrology and applying it to like historical patterns and stuff. And he had a whole thing on like sidereal mythology, I think it's how you pronounce it, and like these comparisons. But anyways, he had this one suggestion that I've never been able to shake, and I always found it so fascinating. I just want to get your take on it. But that when countries go to war, some of the most common motifs tend to be birds. Like when I'm talking about insignia, if you were to show someone is of high rank, they tend to be birds and they tend to be stars. And that part of this is like, and I'm going to oversimplify this, if you kill a bird on the battleground, then you just offered up a pretty high sacrifice to the gods of the sky. If you kill a star on the battleground, you're literally sacrificing the best that you have to offer up to the star gods. And that essentially most of human warfare, in a oversimplified occult way, are really just organized sacrifices to the sky gods and to the star gods. And that's why the insignia is literally like, if I lose a 4-star general in the middle of a war, I just made one of the greatest contributions I ever could if we were worshiping star gods and making sacrifices to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because maybe in a month or two, I do have a whole thread on what we call Remembrance Day and you guys call Memorial Day that I think we should do on SyncTank. So it's funny you're asking that now because, yeah, agreed. I don't know what else to tell you.
We'll have to. I'm going to rely on you to remember that and not me, because I won't. I'm not, even if I write it down, I won't remember it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's ritual sacrifice for sure. There's no question.
Speaking of, I do have a ritual sacrifice that I'm a little bit late for. So, Noah Campbell, Facing North Astrology, all the links in the description, all those different things. Thanks for letting me poke and prod and everything, and I'll continue praying for your souls so that you don't have to burn in hell for eternity.
Yeah, I expected you to be harder on astrology and less on my spiritual soul, but okay, all right.
Dude, this is one of the potato tomato.
All right, fair.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
Explore the unique with Paranoid American sticker sheets. Unearth tales of cryptids, cults, and mysteries through each sticker. These won't last long. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
All American stickers, cryptids, cults, and killers. We got all your favorite conspiracies, all of that and more on our sticker sheets. Paranoid American stickers, they'll make you smile and snicker. False flags and secret societies, all of these and more on our sticker sheets.
What the heck are you waiting for? Discover the extraordinary with Paranoid American sticker sheets. From cryptids in the night to cults out of sight, each sticker is a unique find. Get yours now at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain? Give you the flight, my plane, paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hate, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Man, it's not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when the beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.